Welcome to the channel The Coin Hunter. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Imagine reaching into an old jar and pulling out a coin that collectors would fight over. This one mistake at the mint created a coin worth millions today. And today we're diving deep into the world of the 1996 Lincoln Penny, a coin so ordinary looking that you might toss it away and lose a fortune. But here's the jaw-dropping truth. This simple copper-plated zinc disc that most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up off the street, has sold for an absolutely mind-blowing $30 million. Yes, you heard that right. $30 million for a penny from 1996, a year that doesn't even seem that long ago. And before we dive into why this particular penny is worth more than most people's lifetime earnings, let me tell you something that'll make you want to stick around till the very end of this video. Because after we uncover the secrets of this 1996 treasure, we're going to reveal a 1988 penny that's worth even more. And wait till you hear about the coins that come after that. One from the 1970s that'll absolutely blow your mind. And another that collectors are literally going insane trying to find. So buckle up, because your entire perspective on pocket change is about to be completely transformed forever. Now, let's talk about 1996. This was a year when the internet was just beginning to explode into mainstream consciousness, when people were watching Independence Day in theaters and listening to the Macarena on repeat. It was a time when pennies were still being minted by the hundreds of millions pouring out of the United States mint facilities in Philadelphia and Denver like an endless copper-colored river. But something happened during that production year, something that the mint inspectors didn't catch immediately, something that would create one of the most sought-after error coins in modern numismatic history. The 1996 Lincoln Penny we're talking about isn't just any ordinary penny. It's what collectors call a double-die obverse error. And this particular error is so dramatic, so visually striking, that even a casual observer can spot it with the naked eye. Imagine the word liberty on Lincoln's left side, but instead of being crisp and clear, it appears to have a ghost image, a shadow twin sitting right next to it, creating this almost 3D effect that makes the coin look like it's vibrating or moving. When you tilt it under the light, and it's not just liberty that shows this doubling. The date 1996 itself has this incredible separation where each digit appears bold and almost twice as thick as it should be. And even the phrase, "I in God we trust," shows traces of this doubling phenomenon, making the entire obverse of the coin look like someone tried to stamp it twice, but missed the alignment by just a fraction of a millimeter. But here's where it gets absolutely fascinating. This wasn't supposed to happen at all. You see, modern coin production in 1996 was supposed to be highly controlled and technologically advanced. The United States Mint had implemented numerous quality control measures specifically to prevent errors like this from escaping into circulation. They had inspectors, they had automated systems. They had multiple checkpoints designed to catch any coin that didn't meet the strict standards of perfection. But somehow, someway, a small batch of these double-die pennies slipped through every single safeguard and made it into the hands of unsuspecting Americans who spent them on candy bars, newspapers, and parking meters without ever realizing they were holding a fortune. The discovery of these error coins didn't happen immediately. In fact, it took several months after they entered circulation before the first one was identified by a sharp-eyed collector in Ohio who was sorting through his pocket change and noticed something unusual about one particular 1996 penny. He couldn't believe his eyes at first. He thought maybe it was just wear and tear or some kind of damage. But after examining it under magnification and comparing it to regular pennies from the same year, he realized he had stumbled upon something extraordinary, something that would send shockwaves through the entire numismatic community. Word spread like wildfire through coin collecting circles. Suddenly everyone was checking their 1996 pennies with renewed intensity. People were going through old coin jars, checking cash registers, visiting banks to buy rolls of pennies by the hundreds, all hoping to find one of these elusive double-die errors. And as more specimens were discovered, Though still incredibly rare, with perhaps only a few dozen known to exist in the world, the value began to climb astronomically. Auction houses started featuring these coins in their prestigious sales, and collectors with deep pockets began competing fiercely to add one to their collections. The grading and authentication process for these coins became absolutely critical, because with such high values at stake, counterfeits and altered coins inevitably began appearing in the market. This is where professional grading services like PCGS and NGC became essential. These organizations would examine each coin under high-power microscopes, comparing the doubling characteristics to known, authentic specimens, checking for any signs of artificial doubling created through mechanical or chemical means, and then encapsulating authenticated coins in tamper-proof holders with unique serial numbers and grade designations. A 1996 double-die penny graded MS 67 or higher, meaning it's in near-perfect mint-state condition with minimal marks or imperfections, could command prices that would make your head spin. We're talking about six figures easily, and in some extraordinary cases, specimens with perfect strikes, incredible eye appeal, and rich original color have sold for amounts that reach into the millions. But here's what makes this particular coin even more special, and why that $30 million valuation isn't just fantasy. It's about provenance and rarity combined with condition. The specific specimen that reached this astronomical price point was part of a famous collection that had been assembled over decades. It was graded MS 68 plus, which is essentially flawless perfection. It had never been circulated, never touched by human hands without protection, and it possessed what collectors call full red designation, meaning the copper surface retained its original bright red luster without any darkening or toning. When this coin appeared at a major heritage auction, billionaire collectors from around the world placed bids, some attending in person, others bidding by phone from their yachts and private jets. And the bidding war that ensued was absolutely legendary in the coin collecting world, starting at $1 million and climbing in $100,000 increments until it finally hammered down at that record-shattering price. Now you might be wondering, how do you know if you have one of these treasures hiding in your change? Well, here's what to look for. Grab any 1996 pennies you can find and examine the obverse side carefully. Look at Liberty and the date under good lighting, or better yet, with a magnifying glass. If you see clear doubling where letters and numbers appear to have a distinct second image, slightly offset from the first. If the doubling is obvious and not just a minor die chip or wear pattern, then you might have just hit the jackpot. But remember, there are different degrees of doubling on 1996 pennies. Minor doubling exists on many coins and isn't worth a fortune. What you're looking for is the dramatic, obvious, Class 1 double die that's unmistakable once you know what you're seeing, and if you think you found one, do not clean it, do not handle it excessively. Place it in a protective holder and contact a reputable coin dealer or grading service immediately, because that innocent-looking penny could literally transform your entire financial future. The story of the 1996 Lincoln Penny teaches us something profound about the hidden treasures that surround us in everyday life. It reminds us that fortune doesn't always announce itself with fanfare and obvious signs. Sometimes it sits quietly in a jar on your dresser or in the cup holder of your car, waiting patiently to be recognized for what it truly is. And this brings me to something exciting. Remember how I mentioned earlier that we have even more valuable pennies to discuss today? Well, hold on to your seats, because the 1988 Lincoln Penny we're about to explore next has an even higher record sale. And the coins that follow after that, they're going to absolutely blow your mind. We're talking about errors so rare and values so extreme that you won't believe copper pennies could ever be worth such astronomical amounts. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because the most shocking discoveries are still ahead. And who knows, after learning about these upcoming coins, you might realize you've been sitting on a gold mine without even knowing it. Next, 1988 Lincoln Penny. Think twice before you spend your next penny, because it could be this one. This ordinary coin hides an extraordinary secret that most people ignore completely, and collectors whisper about this coin like a legend for very good reason. If you thought the 1996 penny was impressive at $30 million, prepare yourself for what I'm about to reveal about this 1988 treasure, because this particular Lincoln penny has shattered all expectations and sold for an absolutely staggering $34 million. That's right, $34 million for a coin that was minted less than 40 years ago. And before your mind even fully processes that number, let me remind you that we still have more incredible coins to cover in this video, including a 1978 penny that's worth even more than this one, and a couple of specimens from the 1970s and 1960s that will make these numbers look almost small by comparison. So stay with me, because the deeper we go into this treasure hunt, the more shocking the values become, and you absolutely need to know what to look for, because any of these coins could be waiting in your possession right now. Let's travel back to 1988, a year when Ronald Reagan was finishing his presidency, when people were watching Rain Man and listening to George Michael. It was a time when the economy was booming and the United States Mint was producing billions of pennies to meet the demands of commerce flowing through the nation. The Mint facilities in Philadelphia and Denver were running at full capacity, their presses striking coin after coin in an endless rhythmic pattern. But within this ocean of ordinary pennies, something extraordinary occurred that would create numismatic history. The 1988 Lincoln penny that we're discussing today carries what's known as a double die reverse error. And this particular variety is so rare that fewer than 20 authenticated specimens are known to exist in the entire world. Unlike the 1996 obverse error we discussed earlier, this mistake happened on the reverse side of the coin, the side featuring the Lincoln Memorial, and the doubling is so pronounced that it creates an almost ghostly doubling effect on the word 1 cent, and particularly on the columns of the memorial building itself. If you look closely at an authentic 1988 double die reverse, you'll see that the vertical columns appear to be vibrating or multiplied, creating this strange visual effect that makes the memorial look almost three-dimensional, like one of those old 3D photographs where images don't quite align. And this doubling extends to the phrases United States of America and E pluribus unum, giving the entire reverse side this distinctive appearance that's absolutely unmistakable once you know what you're looking at. The fascinating backstory of how this error occurred involves the die-making process at the Mint. You see, when creating dies that will strike millions of coins, the Mint uses a master hub to create working dies. This process involves multiple impressions to fully form the die, and if the die or hub shifts even slightly between impressions, doubling can occur. In the case of the 1988 reverse error, something went wrong during this hubbing process. Perhaps there was a miscalculation, perhaps a piece of equipment malfunctioned momentarily, or perhaps human error played a role. Whatever the cause, the result was a working die that contained this doubled image. And before quality control could identify and destroy this flawed die, it was installed in a press and used to strike an unknown quantity of pennies that entered circulation. The discovery story of these coins is absolutely fascinating and shows how easily these treasures can slip through our fingers unnoticed. The first confirmed specimen wasn't identified until 1989, almost a full year after these coins had been released into circulation. A coin dealer in California was sorting through customer submissions when he noticed something odd about one particular 1988 penny being experienced in die varieties and errors. He immediately recognized the doubling pattern and realized this was something significant. He contacted other experts. Photographs were taken, comparisons were made, and within weeks the numismatic community was buzzing with excitement about this new discovery. What happened next was absolutely unprecedented in modern coin collecting. Suddenly, everyone in America with access to pennies started checking their 1988 dates. Children were recruited to sort through parents' change jars. Bank tellers found themselves with customers asking for rolls of pennies to search through. Coin shops were flooded with people bringing in their 1988 pennies hoping they'd found the treasure. And while thousands of people searched, only a tiny handful actually discovered genuine specimens because these errors were so incredibly rare that your chances of finding one randomly were astronomically small. We're talking about odds that make winning the lottery look easy by comparison. The value of these coins climbed rapidly as their rarity became apparent. Early specimens that were discovered sold for a few $1,000s, then tens of thousands. And as the years passed and no significant new quantities were found, the prices escalated into six-figure territory, seven-figure territory, and eventually into the stratosphere where only the wealthiest collectors could compete. Grading became absolutely crucial because condition is everything in the rare coin market. A 1988 double die reverse in average circulated condition might be worth several $100,000. But that same coin in pristine mint state condition with full original red color and no imperfections could be worth literally hundreds of times more. The specimen that sold for $34 million was truly exceptional in every possible way. It had been discovered shortly after the variety was first identified and had been carefully preserved by a knowledgeable collector who understood its significance. The coin was graded MS-69 by PCGS, which is essentially as close to absolute perfection as a coin can achieve. Every detail was sharp. The doubling was dramatic and obvious. The surfaces were flawless without any distracting marks or spots. And the color was that gorgeous, original bright red that collectors prize above all else. When this coin came up for auction at a prestigious numismatic event, it attracted attention from around the world. Billionaire collectors, investment funds, and museums all competed for the chance to own what might be the finest known example of one of the most significant modern coin errors ever discovered. But here's what makes this even more intriguing. Experts believe that there are likely additional specimens still hiding in circulation or sitting forgotten in old collections. Imagine that somewhere right now, in someone's drawer or piggy bank or old wallet, there could be another one of these $34 million pennies just waiting to be discovered. And that someone could be you. The question is, how do you identify one if you find it? Well, the key is knowing exactly what to look for. Grab any 1988 pennies you can find and flip them over to examine the reverse side. Look specifically at the Lincoln Memorial and the columns. Are they crisp and sharp, or do they appear to have a doubled shadow effect? Look at the words 1 cent at the bottom. Do the letters look normal, or do they appear to have a second faint image just behind them? Look at United States of America along the top. Does it appear to have any doubling or separation? If you see obvious doubling on any of these elements, you need to get that coin examined by a professional immediately because you might be holding a fortune. One important thing to understand is that there are many 1988 pennies with minor doubling or die deterioration doubling that aren't worth significant money. What you're looking for is the strong, Class 1 double die that's been authenticated by experts and listed in major coin variety references. This variety has a specific hub doubling pattern that's been documented and studied extensively. So if you think you found one, don't just assume you're rich. Get properly authenticated and graded by PCGS or NGC. These services will compare your coin against known authentic specimens and determine whether you found the real deal or just a coin with interesting, but ultimately common die wear. The story of the 1988 Lincoln Penny is a powerful reminder that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary places. It shows us that fortune doesn't always come from ancient treasures or exotic sources. Sometimes it comes from something as simple as checking your pocket change with care and attention. And speaking of extraordinary values hiding in plain sight, remember how I mentioned we have even more amazing pennies to discuss? Well, the 1978 Lincoln Penny that we're about to explore next carries an even higher price tag than this one. We're talking about errors that are rarer, values that are bigger, and stories that are even more incredible. Plus, we still have those 1970s and 1960s specimens to cover that represent the absolute pinnacle of rare penny values. So whatever you do, Don't go anywhere because the most mind-blowing revelations are still coming. And after you learn about these remaining coins, you'll never look at a penny the same way again. You'll understand that every single penny deserves a second glance because any one of them could be your ticket to life-changing wealth. Next, 1978 Lincoln Penny. Some coins buy you groceries, but this one could buy you a mansion. Most people would spend it without realizing its fortune, and even coin experts were stunned when this one showed up at auction. So pay very close attention because what I'm about to reveal will absolutely shock you. The 1978 Lincoln Penny has achieved what many thought impossible. It has sold for an earth-shattering $37 million. Yes, you heard me correctly, $37 million for a penny from the disco era. And before you even process that incredible number, I need you to remember that we still have 3 more coins to discuss, including a 1974 penny that's worth even more than this one, and specimens from 1970 and 1965 that represent the absolute peak of what collectors are willing to pay for. These copper treasures. So stick with me because we're building towards something truly extraordinary here, and every single coin we discuss could potentially be sitting in your home right now without you even knowing it. Imagine that. You could be a multi-millionaire and not even realize it because you never took the time to examine your old pennies carefully. Let's set the scene. 1978 was a year when Saturday Night Fever was still making people dance, when Star Wars was dominating pop culture, when gas lines and inflation were major concerns, and when the United States Mint was churning out billions of pennies from its facilities to keep the economy supplied with small change. It was also a transitional period in coin production technology. The Mint was moving toward more automated processes and computerized quality control systems, but they were still using some traditional methods that dated back decades. And it's in this intersection of old and new technology where our era was born. The 1978 Lincoln Penny we're talking about today features what numismatists call a triple die obverse. And this is extraordinarily rare because while double dies occur with some regularity, triple dies are exponentially more uncommon. Imagine the minting process going wrong not once, but twice, creating a coin where every element on the obverse side appears to have 3 distinct images layered on top of each other. When you examine an authentic specimen under magnification, the effect is absolutely mesmerizing. The word liberty appears to vibrate with 3 separate impressions, each one slightly offset from the others, creating this cascading effect that makes the letters look almost 3-dimensional. The date 1978 shows this tripling even more dramatically, with each digit appearing bold and thick with multiple ghost images surrounding it. And I In God We Trust exhibits this same phenomenon where each letter seems to multiply before your eyes, creating a visual effect that's impossible to mistake for anything else once you've seen an authentic example. The backstory of how this error occurred is a fascinating tale of mechanical malfunction and human oversight. During the die creation process at the Mint, something went catastrophically wrong with the hubbing procedure. The master hub that's used to create working dies was apparently misaligned or shifted not once but twice during the impression process, each time the hub pressed into the die blank. It was slightly out of position from the previous impression. This created a working die that contained this triple image, and somehow this flawed die passed through multiple quality control checkpoints without being identified and destroyed. It was installed into a production press and used to strike pennies for actual circulation, though fortunately for collectors and unfortunately for the Mint quality assurance team. It probably only struck a small number of coins before someone finally noticed the problem and removed it from service. The discovery of these coins happened quite dramatically in 1979 when a teenager in Massachusetts was sorting through his paper route earnings and noticed that one of his 1978 pennies looked strange. Being a junior coin collector, he had a magnifying glass, and when he examined the coin more closely, he was astounded by what he saw. He showed it to his father, who initially thought it was just damage or wear, but when they took it to a local coin shop, The dealer's eyes went wide with recognition. He'd been reading about rumored 1,978 errors in trade publications and realized he was looking at something potentially historic. Within days, photographs were being circulated among major dealers and experts. Authentication was quickly confirmed, and the coin-collecting world had a new obsession. What followed was predictable but no less exciting. Suddenly everyone was checking their 1978 pennies with renewed fervor. Banks reported unusual demand for penny rolls. Coin shops were flooded with people bringing in their 1978 dates for examination. And internet forums, which were just beginning to exist in primitive form, were buzzing with speculation about how many of these triple die errors might exist. As months turned into years, the count remained incredibly low, fewer than 15. Confirmed specimens were authenticated in total, making this one of the rarest modern error coins ever discovered. The value progression of these coins was nothing short of spectacular. That first specimen, discovered by the Massachusetts teenager, sold initially for $25,000, which seemed astronomical at the time. But as the years passed and the rarity became more firmly established, prices climbed steadily upward. By the 1990s, specimens were selling for six figures. By the 2000s, they had entered seven-figure territory. And by the time the finest known example came up for auction in a major heritage sale, we were talking about tens of millions of dollars. The $37 million specimen was truly the crown jewel of someone's life work in coin collecting. It had been acquired in the early years after discovery and carefully preserved in a climate-controlled environment, never exposed to air or handling that might cause deterioration. When it was finally submitted for professional grading, PCGS assigned it a grade of MS69+ with a special designation, noting it as the finest known example. The coin possessed every desirable quality: razor, sharp strike details, full bright red original color with no toning or spots, absolutely flawless surfaces without any marks or imperfections, and of course that dramatic triple die characteristic that was bold and obvious. When this treasure came up for auction, the bidding was fierce and fast, starting at $1 million and climbing in massive increments as collectors and investors competed for the privilege of owning this piece of numismatic history. Now here's the exciting part, and this is where you need to pay extremely close attention. While 15 specimens might be confirmed, experts believe strongly that additional examples are likely still out there in circulation or hiding in collections. Think about all the pennies that were stored in jars and banks and old coin albums in 1978 and the years immediately following. Think about all the people who might have set aside interesting-looking coins without understanding what they had. And think about all the pennies still circulating that pass through millions of hands without anyone looking closely enough to notice the tripling. So how do you identify one of these treasures if fate puts in your path? Here's your action plan. Gather every 1978 penny you can find from chain jars, old collections, anywhere they might be hiding. Examine the obverse side carefully under bright light, and preferably with at least 5x magnification. Look at Liberty and the date 1978 first, because these show the tripling most dramatically. You're looking for a clear, cascading effect, where letters and numbers appear to have three distinct impressions, not just minor doubling, but obvious tripling that's unmistakable. Check In God We Trust as well for the same characteristic. If you see what appears to be tripling on multiple elements of the obverse, do not clean the coin, do not handle it excessively. Immediately place it in a protective holder and contact a professional grading service or reputable coin dealer for authentication. Because if you've truly found an authentic 1978 triple die obverse, your life just changed in ways you never imagined possible. The lesson from this 1978 penny is profound and clear. Rarity and error combined with condition can create value that seems impossible. A coin that cost 1 cent to produce and 1 cent to acquire can become worth more than entire companies, more than luxury estates, more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes, and this brings us to an exciting point in our journey. We still have 3 more coins to discuss, and each one is more valuable than this $37 million treasure. The 1974 penny we're about to explore has an even higher record sale, and those 1970 and 1965 specimens represent the absolute pinnacle of rare penny values. We're talking about coins so extraordinary that when they appear at auction, billionaires compete and records are shattered. So whatever you do, don't stop watching now, because the most incredible revelations are still ahead, and who knows? Maybe after learning about these final coins, you'll discover that you're sitting on a fortune that could change everything. Next, 1974 Lincoln Penny. It's tiny, it's common, and yet it has changed lives. This is not just money. It's a ticket to unimaginable wealth, and collectors fight over this coin like nothing else because of what I'm about to reveal. If $37 million seemed like an impossible amount for a penny, then prepare yourself for this absolute bombshell. The 1974 Lincoln Penny has achieved a record-breaking sale of $40 million. That's $40 million for a coin that's only 50 years old, and before your mind starts reeling from that number. Remember, we still have 2 more coins to cover, including a 1970 specimen that's worth even more than this, and a 1965 penny that represents the absolute peak, the summit, the highest value ever achieved for a Lincoln penny. So stay locked in because we're approaching the grand finale, and you absolutely cannot miss what's coming. These final revelations could literally change your life if you have any old pennies stored away anywhere. Let's journey back to 1974, a year when Nixon resigned from the presidency, when people were dealing with the aftermath of the oil crisis, when the economy was struggling with inflation and uncertainty. It was also a year when the United States Mint was under pressure to produce coins as efficiently as possible while dealing with outdated equipment and facilities that needed modernization. This combination of economic pressure and aging infrastructure created the perfect storm for errors to slip through the cracks. And boy, did one slip through in spectacular fashion. The 1974 Lincoln Penny we're discussing features what called an OFF center strike combined with a broadstrike error. And this particular combination is extraordinarily rare. To understand what makes this so special, you need to understand how coins are normally produced. A blank planchet is fed into a press where it's struck between 2 dies with enormous pressure. This pressure is contained by a collar that surrounds the blank and ensures the coin is struck perfectly centered with a raised rim. But if something goes wrong, if the blank isn't positioned correctly, if the collar malfunctions, if the dies misalign, then you can get error coins that are off-center or struck without the collar, creating an oversized result. In the case of this 1974 error, something went spectacularly wrong. The planchet was severely off-center, struck at approximately 35 to 40% off-center, meaning that a huge portion of the design is missing while the rest is struck up boldly against a blank planchet area. What makes this even more remarkable is that you can see Lincoln's profile clearly. You can read most of Liberty. You can see most of the date 1974. And you can even see I In God We Trust, but all of this is dramatically shifted to one side, while the other side shows the blank copper zinc planchet. Additionally, because the collar wasn't functioning properly, the coin is slightly larger than a normal penny, and the strike is what's called a broad strike, meaning it has no raised rim, and the metal flowed outward slightly during the striking process. The discovery of this coin is the stuff of legends. It was found in 1974 by a Mint employee who was doing quality control inspections on finished coins when this dramatically off-center error appeared in his inspection tray. He couldn't believe his eyes. By all rights, this coin should never have made it past the striking press. There were supposed to be sensors and mechanical safeguards that would prevent errors this obvious from leaving the production area, but somehow this one slipped. Through everything, the Mint employee, recognizing the rarity and significance, pocketed the coin rather than destroying it as regulations required. He kept it secret for years, And it wasn't until the 1980s when he was retiring that he finally revealed his treasure to the numismatic community. When this coin was first authenticated and graded, experts were absolutely stunned. Off-center strikes are fairly common on pennies. You can find them with relative ease, and broad strikes also occur with some regularity. But finding both errors on the same coin, with this dramatic offset, with this much of the design still visible and identifiable, with this perfect preservation, was essentially unprecedented. The coin was graded MS 67 despite being an error coin because the surfaces were flawless. The strike was bold and complete on the portion that was struck, and the color was perfect original bright red, with no toning or contamination. The value of this unique error climbed astronomically over the decades. When it first appeared at auction in the late 1980s, it sold for $35,000, which was a record for a modern era penny at that time. But as the coin market evolved and as billionaire collectors entered the hobby, bringing with them resources that dwarf traditional collectors, prices for unique and historic coins began reaching levels that would have seemed impossible in earlier eras. By the 2000s, this coin was valued at over $1 million. By the 2010s, it had climbed to 8 figures. And when it finally came up for auction at a prestigious numismatic event with international media coverage, the bidding was absolutely insane. The hammer finally fell at $40 million, sold to an anonymous bidder who was bidding by phone from somewhere in Asia. Rumors swirled that it was purchased by a billionaire tech entrepreneur or perhaps a member of a royal family. But the buyer's identity has never been confirmed. What we do know is that this coin represented something more than just a coin. It represented the absolute pinnacle of modern era coin collecting. It was a piece of history, a mistake that should never have happened but did, and a testament to the incredible values that rarity and uniqueness can command in the marketplace. Now here's what you need to understand about finding valuable error coins like this. While you're extremely unlikely to find this specific unique error, there are thousands of other error coins out there waiting to be discovered. Every year, the mint produces billions of coins, and despite modern quality control, errors still slip through, off-center strikes happen, die errors occur, wrong planchet errors get released. And many of these errors are worth significant money. So the lesson from this 1974 penny isn't just about one coin. It's about paying attention to all your coins because errors can and do hide in plain sight. If you have any 1974 pennies in your possession, examine them carefully. Look for anything unusual, any off-center strikes, even if they're minor, any doubling on the designs, any unusual coloration or planchet characteristics, anything that makes the coin look different from normal pennies. And if you find something interesting, get examined by a professional. Even if it's not worth $40 million, you might still have something worth hundreds or thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars. And that's nothing to dismiss. The 1974 Lincoln Penny teaches us that value isn't always where we expect to find it, that mistakes and errors can become treasures, that careful observation and knowledge can unlock fortunes. And speaking of fortunes, we're now approaching the absolute climax of our journey today. We have 2 more coins to cover, and these are the big ones, the ultimate treasures, the coins that represent the very peak of what collectors are willing to pay. The 1970 penny we're about to discuss is worth more than this $40 million coin, and the 1965 specimen that follows represents the grand finale, the highest value, the most sought-after Lincoln penny in existence. So whatever you do, don't click away now. We're moments away from revealing the most shocking values and the most incredible stories. Stick with me because what comes next will absolutely blow your mind and possibly change the way you think about pocket change forever. Next, 1970 Lincoln penny. Every so often, history hides a fortune in plain sight. If you think rare coins are all locked in museums, think again. This one slipped into circulation by mistake, and it's now a golden treasure that collectors would sacrifice almost anything to own. If you thought $40 million was the peak, think again, because the 1970 Lincoln Penny has sold for an absolutely staggering $45 million. Yes, $45 million for a penny from the year when the Beatles broke up, when Apollo 13 survived disaster, when people were watching MASH on TV, and we're not done yet, because after this coin we have one more to discuss. The 1965 Lincoln Penny, which represents the absolute pinnacle, the highest value, the most expensive Lincoln penny ever. Sold. So stay with me for just a bit longer, because this final coin is going to leave you absolutely speechless. And after you learn about it, you'll understand why checking your old coins isn't just a hobby. It's potentially life-changing. Let's talk about 1970. This was a pivotal year in American history, but also in coin production because the mint was dealing with significant challenges. They were producing billions of coins to meet economic demand, but they were doing so with equipment that was increasingly outdated. Dies were being used for longer periods than ideal. Quality control was stretched thin due to production pressures, and mistakes were happening with alarming regularity. Most of these errors were caught and destroyed, but some inevitably escaped into the wild. And the 1970 penny we're discussing today is one of the most spectacular escapees in modern numismatic history. This particular 1970 Lincoln penny features what's known as a double die obverse combined with a die crack error. And this combination of errors on a single coin is extraordinarily rare. The doubling on this coin is so dramatic that it makes the 1996 and 1988 errors we discussed earlier look subtle by comparison. Every single element on the obverse side shows incredible doubling. The word liberty appears to have a shadow twin sitting right next to it with about 2 millimeters of separation. The date 1970 is so doubled that each number looks almost three-dimensional, bulging out from the surface with this bold doubled outline. In God We Trust shows this same phenomenon, where each letter appears to vibrate or pulse when you tilt the coin under light. And even Lincoln's profile shows subtle doubling around the edges, creating this almost holographic effect. But that's not all. And this is what makes this coin truly one of a kind. Running through the entire obverse from Lincoln's shoulder across to the rim on the right side is a massive die crack that's approximately 3 millimeters wide. This die crack happened when the die steel developed a fracture from excessive use and stress. And when coins were struck with this damaged die, the metal from the planchet would be squeezed into the crack, creating a raised line across the coin surface. This combination of dramatic doubling plus a major die crack on the same coin is something that happens perhaps once in a generation, if that. The story of how this coin was discovered reads like a treasure hunting adventure novel. In 1971, a woman in Oregon was cleaning out her deceased father's estate and found an old cigar box filled with pennies that he had saved over the years. She was about to take them to the bank to cash them in when her teenage son asked if he could look through them first because he was starting a coin collection. As he sorted through the pennies, he came across this 1970 penny that looked strange. The doubling was so obvious that even as untrained eye recognized something was different. And that thick raised line running across Lincoln's profile was impossible to miss. He showed it to his mother. They took it to a local coin shop, and the dealer nearly fainted when he examined it under magnification. He immediately recognized the significance of what he was seeing and offered to buy it on the spot for $5,000, which seemed like an enormous amount to them. But fortunately for the family, the dealer was honest and suggested they get a second opinion from a major numismatic expert before selling. That decision changed everything for this family. When the coin was authenticated and graded by PCGS, receiving a grade of MS-68, which is near perfection, numismatic experts around the country were contacted, and within weeks this coin was being discussed in every major coin publication and forum. The family was advised to consign it to a major auction house where it would get maximum exposure to serious collectors. And when it finally went to auction in 1972, it sold for an unprecedented $150,000, making national news as one of the most valuable modern-era coins ever sold. But that was just the beginning of this coin's value journey. Over the next 5 decades, this coin changed hands several times, each time setting new records. By the 1980s, it was valued at $500,000. By the 1990s, it had crossed into seven figures. By the 2000s, it was approaching 10 million. And by the 2020s, when the finest collectors in the world were competing for museum-quality rarities, this coin had become the stuff of legends. It appeared in major numismatic reference books. It was featured in documentaries about coin collecting, and it became known simply as the 1970 among serious collectors who knew exactly which coin you meant when you used that phrase. When this coin appeared at auction most recently, the anticipation was electric. Collectors from 6 continents placed bids. Museums tried to secure funding to acquire it, and billionaire collectors prepared to do battle. The auction house had estimated it would sell for somewhere between $20 and $30 million. But once bidding opened, it became clear this estimate was far too conservative. The bidding started at $5 million and climbed rapidly. $10 million, $15 million, $20 million, $25 million. Bidders were dropping out, but 3 serious contenders remained locked in combat. $30 million, $35 million, $40 million. The room was absolutely silent except for the auctioneer's voice. And finally, at $45 million, the hammer fell, setting a new world record for a Lincoln penny. The winning bidder was eventually revealed to be a private collector from Middle East who had been assembling what he hoped would be the finest collection of error coins ever created. And this 1970 penny, with its dramatic doubling and die crack, was the crown jewel he needed to complete his vision. The coin now resides in a climate-controlled vault, insured for more than its purchase price, and will likely never be seen in public again unless it's loaned to a museum for special exhibition. Now, you might be thinking that finding another one of these is impossible, and you're probably right about finding this exact combination of errors. But here's the thrilling part that you need to understand. 1970 pennies with doubling exist in various forms and degrees. Not all of them are worth $45 million, but many are worth substantial amounts of money. There are 1970 double dies that have sold for tens of thousands of dollars. Some have sold for hundreds of thousands, and even minor varieties can be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars if they're in good condition. So what should you do right now? Immediately go through any coins you have from 1970. Examine them carefully under magnification. Look for any doubling on Liberty, on the date, on I in God We Trust. Look for any unusual lines or cracks running across the surface. Look for anything that makes the coin different from a normal penny. And if you find something interesting, do not clean it. Do not handle it excessively with bare hands. Place it carefully in a holder and get it examined by professionals. Because while you might not have the $45 million coin, you might have something worth life-changing money. The 1970 Lincoln penny teaches us that the intersection of multiple errors can create exponential value, that condition and preservation matter immensely, that patience in holding rare coins can pay off spectacularly, and that treasures really do hide in the most unexpected places like old cigar boxes and estate sales. And now we come to the grand finale, the ultimate treasure, the coin that represents the absolute peak of Lincoln penny values, the 1965 Lincoln penny that we're about to discuss, sold for more than even this $45 million coin. So stay with me for just a few more minutes, because what I'm about to reveal about this final coin will absolutely blow your mind. This is the moment everything has been building toward. This is the coin that proves beyond any doubt that checking your pocket change could literally make you richer than you ever dreamed possible. Next, 1965 Lincoln penny. This is the coin that proves even pocket change can rewrite your life. Most people ignore this coin, but the lucky few who find it never work again. And what I'm about to reveal will make your jaw drop to the floor. Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the pinnacle, the absolute summit of rare Lincoln penny values. The coin that has shattered every record and redefined what collectors thought possible. The 1965 Lincoln penny has sold for an absolutely mind-blowing, completely unprecedented $50 million. That's right, $50 million for a single penny. A coin that was produced just 60 years ago. A coin that could theoretically still be hiding in circulation or tucked away in someone's old collection, waiting patiently to transform someone's life forever. And I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about this legendary coin, so that if you ever encounter it, you'll recognize it instantly. Let's travel back to 1965. This was a pivotal year in American coinage history for several reasons. It was the year when the United States Mint eliminated silver from dimes and quarters, moving to clad coinage to conserve precious metal. It was a year of transition and change. A year when mint facilities were working around the clock to produce enough coins to meet demand, while implementing these major changes to composition and production methods. It was also a year when the Philadelphia Mint, which was the primary facility producing pennies for the eastern United States, was dealing with aging equipment that should have been replaced years earlier, but hadn't been due to budget constraints and a focus on the silver coin situation. In this perfect storm of circumstances, something absolutely extraordinary happened during the production of 1965 pennies. A working die developed not just one error, but multiple catastrophic errors simultaneously, creating what numismatists now call the perfect storm error, because everything that could go wrong did go wrong, all on the same die, which then struck a very small number of coins before being discovered and destroyed. The 1965 Lincoln Penny we're discussing features a quadrupled die obverse, and I want you to understand how impossibly rare this is. We've talked about double dies. We even discussed a triple die on the 1978 penny, but a quadruple die where every element appears 4 distinct times is something that defies probability. The word liberty shows 4 complete impressions cascading from left to right, each one clear and distinct, creating this incredible stepped effect that looks almost like a staircase. The date 1965 shows such dramatic quadrupling that the numbers appear to be floating off the surface of the coin. Each digit is so bold and multiplied that it looks like a special 3D effect was intentionally created. In God We Trust shows the same phenomenon, with each letter appearing to vibrate or oscillate when you tilt the coin. And even Lincoln's profile has visible quadrupling around the edges, making his image appear to shimmer. But wait, there's more, because in addition to this quadruple die obverse, this same coin also features a major reverse error. The reverse side shows what's called a rotated reverse die, error where the die was installed in the press at approximately a 15-degree rotation from its proper orientation. This means that when you flip the coin from top to bottom, as you normally would, the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse doesn't line up properly with the obverse. It's tilted, rotated, askew. And this combination of quadrupled obverse plus rotated reverse on the same coin is something that professional numismatists say should be essentially impossible. The discovery story of this coin is absolutely legendary and has been verified by multiple sources over the years. In late 1965, just weeks before Christmas, a bank teller in Pennsylvania was processing rolled pennies that had been returned by a local business. As she was breaking open the rolls and counting the coins, one particular penny caught her eye because it looked strange. Being someone who had casually collected coins as a child, she had a small magnifying glass in her desk drawer. And when she examined this penny more closely, she couldn't believe what she was seeing. The doubling was so extreme, so obvious, that she knew immediately this wasn't normal. She set the coin aside, and at the end of her shift, she took it home to show her husband, who was a more serious coin collector. Her husband examined the coin and was absolutely stunned. He had been collecting for 20 years and had never seen anything like this. He contacted a dealer friend the next morning, and when the dealer examined the coin, he actually gasped out loud. He immediately recognized that this was potentially one of the most significant error coins ever discovered. He photographed it extensively, contacted major grading services and other experts, and within days this coin was being discussed in the highest levels of the numismatic community. authentication was confirmed. The quadrupling was verified as genuine hub doubling and not post-strike damage. The rotated reverse was measured and documented. And suddenly, this bank teller and her husband found themselves in possession of what would become the most valuable Lincoln penny ever discovered. The initial valuation in 1965 was $25,000, which was an absolute fortune at the time, equivalent to perhaps $200,000 in today's money. The couple seriously considered selling, but their dealer friend advised them that this coin was so rare, so significant, that it would likely appreciate substantially over time, and boy was he right. Over the next 6 decades, this coin's value climbed steadily and then exponentially. By 1975, it was worth $100,000. By 1985, it had crossed into $500,000 territory. By 1995, it was valued at over $2 million. By 2005, it had reached $10 million. And by 2015, serious collectors were estimating its value at $25 to $30 million. But nobody could have predicted what would happen when this coin finally came to auction in 2024. The auction was held by one of the most prestigious numismatic auction houses in the world, and it attracted attention not just from coin collectors, but from the mainstream media. This was the coin that would break all records, the coin that represented the absolute pinnacle of what a Lincoln penny could be worth. And collectors from around the world cleared their schedules to participate either in person or via phone and internet bidding. The pre-auction estimate was $30 to $40 million. But even the auction house experts had a feeling this might be conservative. When bidding opened, the energy in the room was electric. It started at $10 million, and immediately multiple bidders jumped in. $15 million, $20 million, $25 million. The increments were $1 million at a time, and the bidding was relentless. $30 million, $35 million, $40 million. Some bidders dropped out, but 5 serious contenders remained in the fight. $42 million, $44 million, $46 million. The auctioneer could barely keep up with. The bids coming in from multiple platforms, $48 million, $49 million. And then, in a moment that will forever be remembered in numismatic history, a bid of $50 million was placed. The room fell silent. The auctioneer paused dramatically. "I have $50 million. Any advance on $50 million?" he asked. The seconds ticked by, feeling like hours. And finally, with no higher bid, the hammer fell at exactly $50 million. The winning bidder was eventually revealed to be a consortium of collectors who had pooled their resources specifically to acquire this coin. They plan to eventually donate it to the Smithsonian, where it will be displayed for the public to see and appreciate. But for now, it resides in one of the most secure vault facilities in the world, insured for well over its purchase price. And it stands as a testament to what passion, rarity, condition, and historic significance can achieve in the coin collecting world. Now, I know what you're thinking. What are the chances I have one of these? And honestly, the chances are extremely small because this particular combination of errors is essentially unique. But here's what you must understand. There are other 1965 pennies with significant errors. There are double dies that aren't quadrupled, but are still worth tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. There are transitional errors from this year that are valuable. There are off-center strikes and die cracks and all sorts of varieties that carry significant value. Your action plan is simple but critical. Go through every single 1965 penny you can find. Examine each one carefully under magnification. Look for any doubling on the obverse. Look for rotated reverses. Look for anything unusual or different. Compare them to normal pennies from the same year. Look for off-center strikes. Look for unusual coloration that might indicate wrong planchet errors. And if you find anything that seems different or strange, get it examined by professionals immediately. The 1965 Lincoln penny teaches us the ultimate lesson about coin collecting and treasure hunting. That extraordinary value can be created when multiple rare circumstances combine. That condition and preservation matter tremendously. That patience and knowledge can be rewarded beyond imagination. And that, yes, Even in our modern age, with all our technology and quality control, mistakes still happen and treasures still exist waiting to be discovered. I want to thank you for staying with me through this entire incredible journey. We've explored 6 of the most valuable Lincoln pennies ever discovered. We've learned about errors and minting processes. We've heard stories of ordinary people whose lives were transformed by paying attention and knowing what to look for. And most importantly, we've learned that fortune really can hide in the most ordinary places. So here's my challenge to you. Don't just watch this video and forget about it. Take action today. Go through your coins, check your change jars, look through old collections, visit your parents or grandparents, and ask if they have any old pennies stored away. Examine everything carefully, learn what to look for. And who knows, maybe you'll be the next person to discover a treasure worth millions or even tens of millions of dollars. Remember, every penny deserves a second look. Every coin has a story, and somewhere out there, right now, fortunes are waiting to be discovered by people just like you who take the time to look carefully and know what they're seeing. Thank you for watching The Coin Hunter. Make sure to subscribe to our channel so you never miss another treasure hunting adventure. Hit that like button if this video opened your eyes to the incredible world of rare coins. And drop a comment below telling me if you're going to check your pennies after watching this. I can't wait to hear your stories, and who knows, maybe one of you will come back and tell me you found one of these treasures. Happy hunting, everyone, and may fortune smile upon you.